Welcome back to my channel. In this video I'll be showing you how to make chicken calzones. I've listed the full ingredients with the measurements in the description box below. Measure 350 milliliters of water and add the sugar and yeast. Mix well and remove any lumps. Leave aside and allow the yeast to bloom for a few minutes. Meanwhile, prepare the garlic butter. For this, you will need salted butter and chopped garlic. Place the butter in a pan and allow it to fully melt. This will usually take a couple of minutes. Make sure that you melt the butter on the lowest heat possible, as you don't want to burn the butter. Once the butter is fully melted, add in the chopped garlic. Mix and cook for around 3 to 4 minutes. You want to cook the garlic until it slightly changes colour. At the beginning it will be quite white, but after a few minutes it will turn golden. Once you see the garlic slightly change colour, turn off the heat at this stage, as the heat will continue for a few minutes and you don't want the butter to burn. Transfer to a bowl. Place the butter in the fridge to set again and use later on. You now want to prepare the dough. For this, create a well in the middle of the flour. Add salt, olive oil, and the yeast mixture from earlier on. Bring the dough together with a spoon really well. Make sure there's no lumps and the water and flour are really well combined. Don't worry about mixing all the flour in perfectly, as we are going to need this dough on the worktop. Dust a clean worktop with a little flour and empty the dough out from the bowl. Scrape any mixture that hasn't been folded in. Bring the dough together and knead for a few minutes. When you're kneading, make sure that you're not pressing really hard, be quite soft and just pull the dough away and bring it back together again. After a few minutes of kneading, you will see that the flour will have incorporated into the dough really well. At this point, do not add any more flour and just continue to knead the dough. You should now have a smooth and stretchy dough that does not stick to the worktop. This is a sign that it's now done. As you can see, the dough is now nice and smooth. When pushed, it should also bounce back. Grease the bowl with some more olive oil and place the dough back into the bowl. Cover the dough and leave to rise in a warm place. While the dough is rising, you want to make the chicken filling. Add in salt, garam masala, coriander powder, tandoori masala, chili powder, ginger and garlic paste, you can use fresh or frozen, and some red food colouring. And lastly, add in some full fat yogurt. Mix all the spices in really well with the chicken. The good thing about this marinade is that you don't have to leave it overnight, you can use it straight away. Make sure all the chicken pieces are coated really well. Sometimes the pieces at the bottom can get left out, so make sure that you mix the bowl really well. In a large non-stick pan, heat some oil and add in the chicken. Cook the chicken on a high heat as you want the cooking time to be as quick as possible. The chicken will be put in the oven again, so you don't want the chicken to dry out. After a few minutes, you will begin to see the chicken leave some water. This is totally normal and you will need to evaporate this out. The water won't take long to evaporate as you're cooking the chicken on a high heat. Once the water does begin to evaporate, make sure that you're stirring constantly as you don't want the chicken to burn. Once all the water has evaporated, cook for a further 2 minutes. You can reduce the heat down to medium at this stage. Once you see the oil appearing from the sides of the pan, the chicken is now done and you can turn off the heat. You now want to transfer the chicken onto a cutting board and cut into small pieces. Cut the chicken while it's still hot. Don't wait for the chicken to cool down, otherwise your chicken will dry out. For this recipe, I have used 1 kg of boneless chicken. If you feel like this is too much, you can halve the recipe. Return the chopped chicken pieces back into the pan without any heat. You now want to add in some chopped bell peppers, chopped chilies, I've used red and green, and some chopped red onions. Mix this in really well with the chicken. Remember, you don't need the heat on. You now want to add some tomato ketchup. I've used a 1/4 cup. You might think this is not enough, but you don't want to add too much, otherwise your filling will make the dough soggy. Lastly, add some chopped fresh coriander and mix this in really well. Your filling is now ready. By the time you have made the chicken filling, the dough has had enough time to rise. Uncover the dough and using some plain flour on your hands, take the dough out of the bowl. You now want to knock back the dough and knead it for around 2 minutes, and again be really gentle when doing this, you don't want to use a heavy hand. When kneading, make sure that you don't add any plain flour into the dough, it should be nice and smooth anyway. You now want to roll the dough out into a log shape. And using a sharp knife, cut it into 8 equal pieces. You can change the pieces bigger or smaller depending on your preference. I've done 8 pieces of dough which are around 127 grams each. You now want to roll the dough out into a smooth ball, as we're going to leave these to prove again for a few more minutes, and the round shape will make rolling out a lot more easier. Cover the dough balls and leave to rise for about 5 minutes. Grab your first piece of dough and using some plain flour, flatten it out. I've still got the rest of the pieces covered while I make this first one. You now want to roll the dough out. It's up to you how big or small you want this. Whichever size you decide to make, just make sure that you don't roll out the dough too thin or too thick. You want it just about in the middle. Transfer the dough onto some baking paper, as this will make it easier to lift off. Now fold the dough in half to create a guideline in the middle. You now want to spread some tomato puree on the bottom half of the calzone. Make sure to leave a bit of space on the edge as you need some space to fold the calzone over. You now want to spread some garlic butter that we prepared earlier on the top half of the calzone. You can add as much or as little garlic butter as you wish, or you can also omit this step out if you don't like the taste of garlic. You now want to add a little bit of cheese on the bottom and top. You now want to spoon on the chicken filling from earlier on the bottom half of the calzone. Be quite generous and make sure to leave a bit of space on the edges. Add some more grated cheese on top of the chicken, and using some pizza seasoning, grate on top and on the bottom of the calzone. If you don't have pizza seasoning, you can use oregano, chili flakes and thyme. You now need to fold the top half over and get rid of any air bubbles and press down lightly on the edges. To get the classic calzone design, you want to pull the dough out and over your finger. If you find this too hard, you can just crimp the edges with a fork. You now want to transfer the calzone onto a pizza tray. This will ensure that the base cooks evenly. Now you want to spread a thin layer of egg wash on top. Finish with some more grated pizza seasoning and repeat the process for the rest of the calzones. Bake the calzones in a preheated oven at gas mark 6 for about 15 to 20 minutes. If you liked this recipe, make sure to like, comment and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me over on my official Instagram page, Foodatives. The link is in the description box below, where you can find full recipes, tips and highlights of all my recipes featured on my channel.